Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, hello-y. My name is Loey, and today we're going to be watching 13 TikToks that may just make you believe in mimics. Now, what is a mimic? I feel like we've been talking about mimics a lot this year. They've been going really viral on social media, but mimics are essentially a type of entity that can mimic, much like the name, you, a loved one, anything really that will get your attention and get you to respond to it or let it into your home. And the thought process is that once you let them in, then they can mimic you. It's also sometimes another word for flesh pedestrians, windy boys, whatever you want to call them, just not the actual word. Anyways, today we have quite a few mimic stories to get into, but before we do have a word from our sponsor. Thank you so much to Helix for sponsoring today's video. I've had my Helix mattress in my bedroom for over 6 months now. Can you believe that? I feel like it was literally yesterday that I was telling you guys that I had found my perfect mattress through Helix, and I've had literally half a year of incredible sleep on it. Helix Sleep offers premium mattresses that are shipped directly to your door, and you always know that you're getting the perfect fit because through Helix and their sleep quiz, they will match you to your perfect mattress based on your body type as well as your sleep preferences. Before I got my Helix mattress, I will tell you guys, I rarely got a good night of sleep. I'm already a bit of a night owl as is. It's kind of hard for me to turn off, but ever since getting my Helix mattress, I mean, my head hits the pillow and I am out like a light, man. It is incredible to have a mattress that's specifically designed for plus size bodies. I don't think I've said this yet, but I got the Helix Plus mattress, which is of course a mattress designed specifically for plus size bodies. It says that this mattress is a medium firm mattress, and I would totally agree with that. I do personally like a slightly firmer mattress, and with my Helix Plus mattress, I feel totally supported. That's worth it in itself to me. I won't lie to you guys, I was traveling for like 3 weeks and I cannot tell you how nice it was to come home to my own bed. I also got the Glacio text cover. If you are a hot sleeper like yours truly, I think that this is an incredible upgrade to get to your Helix mattress. It kept me cool all summer long, and now that I have the heat on for winter, it's still keeping me nice and cool. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses that are custom made to fit your sleep needs and are conveniently shipped right to your door with free shipping in the US. The mattress comes rolled up in a box. It's super easy to set up. Helix also offers a 100-night sleep trial, so if you're nervous about trying something new, you have 3 months to try out your new mattress. Helix's Black Friday sale is running now for a limited time, and they are offering LoeyLane fans an exclusive discount this month. 27% off of your mattress purchase plus 2 free pillows and a free bedding bundle with your Luxe or Elite order. Use code HelixPartner27 to receive this discount, and make sure to use my link down below if you guys are shopping for a new mattress. It really helps out the channel when you use my link, so thank you very much. Thank you so much to Helix for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys for all of your support. If it wasn't for you, I would never get to do cool things like this. And now let's get into the scary videos. I lied, one final thing. As you are watching this, I have filmed it within the week that it is going up, so this is the first kind of current video that you're getting from me. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your well wishes. And I hope that I will be back with you on a regular schedule soon, but I just wanted to say a big thank you for all of the support and the kind wishes and just the love that you've been sending me. It means more than you could possibly know. To start off, we have a couple of videos from a user named davethebeardedmenace, an amazing name for an amazing creator who I stumbled across when his videos talking about his experiences growing up in a haunted house went viral. Dave has a plethora of scary stories on his account talking about these paranormal experiences, but there's a reason why this one about the mimic stands out. Dave says that the mimic was just that. It would mimic people's voices. I mean, to a T, he says, except that it would sound like they were in a slightly lower volume. He says it was like if somebody was watching the TV at like 5%. You would hear what sounded like someone else's voice, but just quiet enough probably that you were like, did I really just hear that?
Sometimes it sounds like it's in the next room next to you, but it's still at that very low volume. Even if someone was like screaming, it sounded very low, like, hey, help, like very low. I don't know really where it came from or if it was already in the house we moved in, but I do have a feeling it manifested the night my sister saw the old woman in her bedroom.
Now you, like myself, are probably wondering, old woman, In the bedroom, what is the sister seeing? Don't worry, we'll get to that. Kind of put that off to the side for now. One day, Dave's mom and her friend are standing outside and they're just talking about work. They both work in retail. They're discussing retail life. When they hear what sounds like a voice repeating everything that they're saying, but in a mocking way, almost the way that like a kid would do it.
Best way I could describe it is my mom would say something like, "Hey, how was your day?" And it would literally sound like from the back of the garage. And they were hearing this and they're like, what the hell is that? So as two Latino women who are fearless, what did they decide to do? They decided to go investigate. Like they're thinking, oh, someone's in the yard. So they heard it clear as day, someone mimicking every single time they said something. And when they went to the back of the garage, nothing. There was like nothing there. And they're like, oh, well, it's late. It's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we imagine it was a long day at work. And then they would hear from now the front of the garage, like just mocking them every single time they said something. And they went to the front of the garage to check it out. Now, you could say it was being a distraction because my sister was by herself upstairs with the old woman, and my mom and her friend didn't go back into the house until they heard my sister scream and then describe what she saw.
Our poster says that in this particular instance, what pulled the two women out of trying to figure out what was going on with this voice was the sound of his sister screaming upstairs for their mother because she just saw an old woman in her bedroom. Dave says he's not sure if the mimic came with the house, if it was something that was already attached to them, or if it came with the old woman from the forest that night. So let's talk about the old woman, which I'm gonna put in the category of a mimic because it seems like it's sort of intertwined with this story. It sounds very mimic-like as well. Dave says that at the time, this was in the 90s, his sister was working at a local 24-hour gas station nearby, about a mile down the road. At this time, he and his family didn't have a car to get from A to B, so they pretty much walked everywhere. So one day, it's late into the night / early into the morning, his sister is walking home from a shift. And on her way back to the home, his sister starts hearing what sounds like voices coming from the woods.
And my sister was hearing voices in the forest, particularly voices calling her name. For the sake of the story, we will call my sister Marianne. So there's, she's been hearing Marianne, just all these voices from the forest. She asked my mom and her family friend, do you guys hear that? And they're like, no, we don't hear a thing. So she ignored it and kept on walking. And as she got away from the wooded area, the voices dissipated.
Now, Dave's sister had walked home with his mother and her friend. And so they kind of break off. They're standing in the yard and they're talking about retail where they would then experience the mimic. While his sister, Marianne, heads into the house. And when she's going into the house, she's going through the living room. She's about to go upstairs. And she notices that their family cat is like pissed about something. Like family cat is seeing something it doesn't really like, specifically in the sister's bedroom.
She walks into the living room and she's about to go up the stairs to her bedroom, and she sees our old family cat, our beloved cat Pensha, sitting at the top of the stairs. And she's just staring into my sister's bedroom. And my sister's like, hey, Pensha, come down here. What are you staring at? And the cat would not break eye contact with whatever she was looking at in my sister's bedroom. And I believe at this point in time, it was a long time ago, but I believe in this point in time, we already knew there was something up with the house. So my sister was very nervous to go upstairs and see what the cat was staring at. So she walks up the stairs, looks at the cat's still staring just hard into her bedroom. And my sister looks in her bedroom, and in the middle of the bedroom, her bedroom, she sees a little old lady just hunched down, like kneeling down in the middle of her bedroom. So my sister obviously is frozen in panic, and she notices like the lady has no hands. It's just nubs where the hands would be. And my sister's staring for a moment, and all of a sudden the lady just kind of turns and looks at my sister. So my sister obviously freaks out, and the lady just books it towards my sister, screaming at her in Spanish, "It is all your fault. It is all your fault. Todo es tu culpa. Todo es tu culpa." My Spanish sucks nowadays. And my sister obviously closes her eyes and covers her face. After she lowers her hands, the lady's gone. The lady is no longer there. And she hears the cat hissing. She looks at the cat, and the cat is hissing, tail wide and everything, at my sister. So, of course, what does my sister do? She screams bloody murder, runs downstairs, wakes up the whole house, and basically tells us what happened.
What do you mean there was a woman hunched down in her bedroom who ran at her screaming in Spanish? Also, the cat was reacting to it. It definitely was not all in her head. And then take into account the fact that while all of this is happening, her mother and her mother's friend are currently having a paranormal experience in the front yard of their home. Now, Dave has so many stories on his account, and we're only going to be focusing on his stories regarding the Mimicked today, but I highly recommend checking out his account if you like scary stories. Not only does he share his own, but he'll share his scariest viewer submissions as well. He's an amazing TikToker. Make sure to check him out. As I do with all of these videos, I will have everybody that I talk about today listed down below. But anyway, moving on here, we have a part 2 to the Mimicked story. Dave starts off with a story from the time that he was around 12 or 13. He had spent the whole day outside and he wound up taking a shower at 1 in the morning. Coincidentally, he says he doesn't really think this is related, but it was the same exact day that Princess Diana passed away. And while he's in the shower, he hears something terrifying.
I'm in the shower, and outside the window right next to the shower, I could hear a woman sobbing, and it was loud. I believe that night I was probably the only one in the house. My mom would work nights. My sister moved out at the time. My brother was in the army. So I was the only one there. And I hear sobbing, and I don't even think I finished getting the soap off me. I just dried myself off, and I was out. I was just in my mom's bedroom, just chilling. So I'm like, nope, I'm not putting up with that. Not out, not in the shower. I'm defenseless.
Another thing that happened around this time was that Dave was in his brother's room. His brother was off in the army, so Dave would often spend time in his bedroom. And while it seems like he did this quite often, on this day, something weird happened.
I think I was reading a comic book, or I forgot what I was doing, but I distinctly heard his voice ask, "What are you doing?" But he was in the army, and he was stationed at the time at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. So obviously it wasn't him. He wasn't even living there. We're in Connecticut. He's in North Carolina. Heard his voice clear as day.
And as this video goes on, these stories just get more and more terrifying. Whatever this thing is, it is mimicking his family members down to a T.
Flash forward a little bit, or a lot of it. It was my buddy Nolan and my buddy Mike, and we were just hanging out in the living room, and we distinctly heard my nephew's voice upstairs, and he called for me, and he distinctly said, "Yo, Uncle Dave." Nephew wasn't even there at the time. I believe he was at a friend's house. He just wasn't in the house, long story short. And I remember my buddy Nolan specifically looking at me, putting his hands in his face, looking back at me. He just goes, "I hate this house," and left.
Dave even has a story of when his then girlfriend, now wife, heard what sounded like her own voice calling out to her while in that very home.
My then girlfriend, now wife, was hanging out in my bedroom upstairs, and she said she distinctly heard my voice call her from the other room, the room across the way, the room specifically that my sister saw the old woman. In the same, I don't know if this was the same night or another night, she said she distinctly heard a growl come from that room that my sister saw the old woman in. And this is many years after. This is maybe close to 20 years or so after my sister saw the old woman in that room. Same girlfriend, now wife, was in the kitchen watching TV. I believe my mom was asleep in the bedroom, and it was her and my cat Sputnik at the time just chilling, and she heard her voice, her own voice, say, "Come here," from the upstairs bedroom. I think I was out getting something, or I wasn't there at the time. She was just there chilling at the house watching TV, and the cat heard it as well. And I remember her saying the cat looked at her and upstairs, and the cat was like, "Yo, what the fuck was that?" And my wife just was like, "No." And I think either she left or she just stayed downstairs or whatever, but she kind of ignored it. She's like, "Nope, no." Same thing happened to me. I'm hanging out in the kitchen with the cat, watching whatever on TV, And all of a sudden we heard her voice say, "Come here," from the living room. Both me and the cat looked. We walked and investigated in the living room because at the time, Sputnik was my little buddy. Like when we heard or saw something, we go looking for it. Because if she was with me, like we'd go and find it. And sure enough, nothing.
And obviously all of this is terrifying. But in part 3, Dave explains that at one point, even his brother had an encounter with the Mimic, or at the very least heard it. So how Dave explains it is that his dad worked really late nights. I'm talking late nights. Like the man sometimes would sleep on the job so that he could get right back to work first thing in the morning. It seems like he was a very hard worker. And one night when it's very late, his brother hears all of the telltale signs of their dad coming home. He hears him come through the door. He hears him go into the kitchen. He hears the lid come off of the pot of food that Dave's mother left on the stove. And I'm sure you know where this is heading.
So my brother wakes up around the time my dad should have came home, around 1 or 2 a.m. And he distinctly hears the sound of the kitchen door opening and then hitting the chair that was next to the door and sliding against the ground and hitting the table. This was a regular occurrence in the house. And my dad was very aggressive when he would open the door. He just would open it, hit it, and then he would stomp into the house like a dinosaur. And these are the distinct sounds my brother heard. So he hears my dad stomp into the kitchen, close the door, stomp into, or rather in front of like the stove, and then basically pull like the top of the pot that my mom would leave the pot of food off of the pot. He distinctly heard my dad put food onto the plate, but very aggressively. Like he heard like the wooden spoon hit the plate a bunch of times that he was putting food on the plate. He then heard my dad walk over to the kitchen table, slide another chair out against the floor, sit down, and he heard my dad begin to eat. And little by little, the sound was like dissipating, getting lower and lower as he was eating. Now, the weirdest part about all this, if it couldn't get weird enough, is that whoever it was never turned on the light for the kitchen. They did everything in the pitch black.
Dave's brother ends up literally pulling the covers over his head. He's absolutely terrified. He somehow falls asleep like that. In the morning, he comes out and he doesn't see the pot of food that he had heard his dad get into the night before. So he asks their mother, "Hey, did dad come home last night?" To which their mom says, "No. He did not come home."
So he asked my mom, "Hey, did Pop come home last night?" And Mom was like, "No, he didn't come home. He probably stayed the night over at the construction site." And my brother instantly freaked out because he distinctly heard all of this. He wasn't dreaming. He was up. He was awake. And he heard everything. And of course he tells my mom. My mom's like, "Oh, don't, you know," obviously because my mom knows, like, don't feed into this stuff. She's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine." And then from then on, he really didn't see much since.
Absolutely terrifying. Once again, Dave is a new favorite account of mine. I highly recommend checking him out if you enjoy scary stories. But these Mimic stories were too scary not to share. I feel like I have included a lot of clips of mimics here on my channel with varying degrees, I believe, of authenticity. I mean, you can never truly gauge whether or not something is real or not through the internet anyways, especially when it comes to ghosts, but hearing stories like this from the mouth of somebody who truly went through them way before mimics were ever some scary, trendy, viral thing, it's creepy to say the least. I'm having some trouble with my camera battery, so I will see you guys tomorrow to finish this video. Okay, it is the next day. I apologize about that, and I apologize for the lighting now. My camera battery charger died. I didn't realize it wasn't charging my camera batteries, had to get a new one. It was a whole thing. Anyway, back into the TikTok stories. I actually stumbled across a different video of this user, jordansmikle, and we'll talk about that video in a minute, but then I realized he also has a Mimic story on his account. Jordan said that this is a story he genuinely thinks he just blocked out after it happened, and for good reason. It is terrifying. So Jordan comes home from school one day and he's pretty much home alone. Everyone else is out of the house for one reason or another in his family home. Now there's a strict no gaming on weekdays policy in Jordan's house, but he's home alone, he gets out his computer, he's going to play his game. He's in his room, he's playing his game, when suddenly he hears what sounds like something dropping right outside of his door. And he kind of ignores it, he knows he's home alone, until he hears the sound again. And this is where the story takes a terrifying turn.
Anyways, fast forward, I'm chilling on my bunk bed, and all of a sudden I hear something drop from outside of my room. So I immediately think that it's my older brother coming back home from practice, and I continue doing what I was doing. About 3 seconds later of not acknowledging this noise, I hear something else drop, and I decided to yell, "What are you doing?" Because keep in mind, if my older brother was in there dropping or breaking stuff, I'm not about to get the blame for it. Now tell me why I hear a woman's voice go, "making food." So I remember in that moment, I kind of froze for a bit, and you know when your heart starts beating uncontrollably and it feels like it's literally like popping out of your chest? That's what it felt like. So I remember getting up, climbing down from the top of my bunk bed and walking to my door. Now keep in mind, this whole entire time, I did not open my door. So the door's closed and I remember yelling, "What are you cooking?" So my mom could hear because I was curious, and plus my mom, she never usually cooks this early in the afternoon unless she's cooking like a big meal. So I wanted to know what she was cooking. So I remember the voice, or my mom, didn't say anything for like a while, and then all of a sudden blurts out, "I'm cooking spaghetti." The voice of my mom was like freaky. It was very monotoned. I don't know. It was just like, it wasn't like, it didn't sound real. So I remember saying one last thing, and this is where things got insane. So I ended up yelling, "I don't smell anything." And tell me why literally 3 seconds later, the voice I once heard from afar is now right at my door. So I remember it laughed and it said, "Open your door and you'll be able to smell it."
This is terrifying. He's terrified. He locks his bedroom door, and alarmingly, he hears what sounds like someone breathing on the other side. He's like, my mom is not acting like this. Like, this is not something my mother would do. He goes to his window, looks outside, and sure enough, his mom's car is not in the driveway.
My first instinct is to go up on my bed, grab my phone, and immediately call my mom, and that's exactly what I did. As I'm dialing, I started hearing my doorknob like moving, like it was jingling as if like they were gonna open it, but because I locked it, they could not open it. So I immediately hop off my bed, I run to my door, and I grab the knob so that, you know, it's not turning anymore. My mom, she finally picks up. So she answers the call, yelling at me, telling me how she's almost home, and I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, that's the mom that I know. Not this like weird, calm, monotoned voice that I'm hearing. So I confirm out loud that she's on her way, so I go, "So you're on your way home?" And like I hang up, just to indicate to this person or thing that I know that they're not who I think that they are. Now this is where things got even more crazier, because as soon as I hung up that phone, my door, whatever was behind it, starts immediately banging on it. So my heart drops to my stomach and I start screaming. The voice keeps yelling, "Open the door, open the door." And I'm still screaming in fear. I remember at one point the banging stopped and the voice started crying. I remember it was a soft cry and it was pleading to me. It was pleading that I open the door because it wanted to see me. And I don't know if it had me like under a spell or something, but something in me was telling me to like open the door. Like I had that urge to open the door, but thank goodness I did not. Like I knew that I shouldn't and I didn't. So about 5 minutes of just hearing these crying, more banging on the door, I finally hear my mom's car beep outside. Suddenly the crying, knocking, and doorknob moving stopped.
After all of this, finally, Jordan's mother comes home, and she had been out actually getting him more reeds for his clarinet. He had like chipped his last clarinet reed. So she's yelling, "Open up the door, I have your stuff." But he's like scarred from this experience he just had, thinking, is that my mom? Is it not my mom? Luckily, it was her.
I truly believe I encountered the mimic, and I'm just so thankful I did not open up that door, because whew, I would not be here right now.
That is one of the scariest stories I have ever heard around a mimic, around literally anything ever. And Jordan has a lot of stories on his account. You might be able to tell he talks about some scary stuff from time to time. How I actually found him was through his story about how his father met the smiling man in Jamaica. So let me set the scene for you. Jordan says his father was really active at this time and would always be going on like jogs and walks and stuff. And one of the trails that he would go on these jogs on didn't have any street lights. So his dad is like, I'm just gonna go for a run on this trail with my flashlight and see how far I can get. What is it like to be a man? Like, what is it like to go for a run at night with a flashlight in hand and just know that all will be well? That is a crazy feeling, I'm sure. And as soon as he starts on this trail, things are kind of weird. He's like seeing things out of the corner of his eye, but at one point as he's running around a corner, he sees a figure standing there in the darkness. He immediately points the flashlight at it. Nobody's there. But now he's on high alert. And that's when he encounters the smiling man for the first time.
My dad said he was running through the trail, made this really sharp turn, and at the corner of his eyes, he saw a figure standing there. My dad quickly shined his flashlight to then see nothing. So he said in this moment his heart stopped because he knew for a fact that he saw something. So that's when he heard the bushes moving and then he heard a laugh coming from it. So after hearing a laugh, my dad said these exact words. "You can come out because that's not funny or I'm gonna beat your..." He said after he said that, he heard the same bushes moving. And that's when he shined his flashlight on it, but what happened next shocked him. My dad watched as this man with a very tall figure popped up from the bushes with this sinister smile. He said it was a huge smile. It looked uncanny, it was unnatural, and it was just weird. It was almost as if it was a human in disguise. My dad said he tried to ignore the smile while talking to the man, but every single thing he asked, the man would not answer and the smile would just get bigger. After hearing no response from this man, he did what anybody else in the world would do. He booked it. He ran. Finally, my dad said he ran through this trail as fast as he could. Now, my dad is a runner, but this time he was a runner. So he said he was running as fast as he could, but he could still hear this man right behind him. At one point, he was able to turn around while running, shine the light on the guy, only to find out he was just standing there. Standing still, no smile, nothing. So out of fear, my dad screamed, "What do you want?" And after that, things got even more creepier. My dad said once again, there was no answer from this guy. Instead, the man started to smile again and lifted his hand, pointing at my dad. My dad said after this man pointed at him, "Tell me why the flashlight started to flicker."
Jordan's dad may have never seen a horror movie before, but the minute that flashlight started flickering, he was out of there. His dad was screaming, making noise, alerting anyone else who might be on the trail that something was going on, basically. And he runs all the way from the end of the trail back to the road with the streetlights nearby. As he does this, he turns around one more time to make sure that the man is not still behind him. He doesn't see anything when he turns around at first. But when he turns back, the smiling man is right in front of him.
My dad said as he turned his back to see nothing, he turned right back around to find the guy smiling right in front of him. In this moment, he went full defense mode. He said he struck the man with the flashlight right in the head, and as he was down, he ran all the way back home. He said he locked every door, every window. He slept with his lights on. He even got in trouble for doing that, but he did not care. No. But ever since that night, my dad said he never saw that man again, and he'll never step foot in Jamaica, because honestly, that guy might be waiting for him at the airport.
The way Jordan tells stories is so good. Like, I could really see the smiling man, or what I think the smiling man might have looked like in my head the whole time he was telling the story. And if I was his father, I probably would have been frozen in fear. So good on him for actually booking it. But it made me wonder, what was the smiling man? Was it a mimic type of entity that wanted to lure him in? Was it something else? Was it an actual person just being creepy? And then if it was, how did they like get in front of him at the end of the trail like that? I don't know. I kind of think that this was a mimic type of entity as well, especially given like the story that Jordan just told about his experience with a mimic later on, because this thing that happened to his dad obviously happened, I think, long before Jordan was in the picture. But I'm curious what you guys think the smiling man was. I stumbled across what I believe is a mimic story from a TikToker named unty.tan.b. Now, her parents bought a house in New Jersey in 1968 after it had literally just been built in 1966. They were like the first owners of this house, and this house was so haunted, to the point that this poster's mother wouldn't even sleep in the same bedroom as her father because that was the room that everything seemingly happened in.
So the neighborhood itself was supposedly built on top of a burial ground or an Indian burial ground. And they said a lot of activity was happening throughout the neighborhood, and a lot of the houses, when they used to talk to their neighbors, they shared a lot of the same stories.
And it seems like the whole family kind of knew this was the case. And the poster says that these paranormal happenings were happening like long before she was even a twinkle in her parents' eye. But they couldn't just leave this house they had bought. I feel like that's a lot of the times that people will say, you know, oh, if it's an insanely haunted house, just get out. But what are you going to do when all your money is sunk into this one place? And one day our poster is in that bedroom, her parents' bedroom, where her mother will not sleep. Her mom is downstairs mopping. Her dad is out. She has, I think she said, like 6 other siblings. None of them are really around. And she's in front of a mirror in her parents' room when she sees something standing behind her.
And I was in their room for whatever reason. I was just playing with their stereo system. Behind the stereo system, there was a wall mirror. And I just remember playing at the stereo system, looking up, and my mom was standing behind me. I could see her in the mirror, but my mom wasn't wearing anything. And when I mean she wasn't wearing anything, I mean she was completely not wearing anything. So I turn around thinking this is weird as shit, and I look and my mom's not there. She's not behind me. So I turn back around to look in the mirror and she's still standing there. So I run as fast as I can out the room, hit my knee on our couch, start crying. My mom's like, don't go in there. That's why I don't go in there. The only person that slept in my room, in that room, was my dad. Nothing bothered him.
Now, that is a mimic if I've ever heard of one. I mean, that's literally what a mimic does. It mimics something that you know, somebody that you know, tries to lure you in with this like false sense of security. It certainly sounds like a mimic type of entity to me, but then she tells another story in this video that makes me wonder if it was even something else. One night there's a really big storm and the power's out, and she says that her mom was kind of just consoling all the kids, like telling them stories, talking to them, trying to keep them occupied as the power is out, trying to keep them calm. And they hear a huge crash from the kitchen. She said literally what sounded like the ceiling fan fell in the kitchen.
Sound like our ceiling fan in the kitchen had fallen out of the ceiling onto the floor. Glass went everywhere. So my dad comes out of the room, his room that he was in. He's like, oh my God, like I got to clean this up. And my mom's like, yeah, well, watch your feet, you know, don't walk in there with no shoes on. There's glass on the floor. So he goes to bend the corner to go look. He goes back in his room and he doesn't say anything. He closes the door. And my mom's like, are you going to clean up the glass? Are you going to clean it up? And he's like, I'm not finna go in there. So my mom's like, why aren't you going in there? So she gets up, she goes and looks in the kitchen, and there's nothing on the floor. Nothing at all.
That certainly was not all that happened in the house. They would hear what sounded like somebody moving around in the kitchen, pots and pans moving, and her mother would always just say, don't look in the kitchen when things like that would happen.
We used to hear books slamming in the upstairs room. We all slept, like me, my mom, my brothers, all of us slept in the living room because we were so afraid of that house. My mom didn't want to move. My dad didn't want to move. They bought the house. They were trying to sell it. We used to hear books slamming, just like all throughout the night. You would hear, like, it sounded like someone was taking a textbook and just slamming it on the floor as hard as they could. Some nights we would hear in the kitchen, like someone was clinking pots and pans, spoons and forks. And my mom would say, don't look in the kitchen, just ignore it and go to bed.
Eventually it stopped. Eventually they left the house. But I mean, whatever this was, mimicking her mother like that in the mirror in such a terrifying way, and then the ceiling fan seemingly falling out of the ceiling, but nothing had actually crashed in the kitchen, whatever it was had to be pretty powerful. The poster says, like, this is not stuff that she plays with, and I fully understand why after having paranormal experiences like these. Now, the final TikToks that we're going to be talking about today, and I know you guys are like, this video is literally halfway over. What do you mean the final TikToks we're going to be talking about today? The rest of this video is all focusing on a story coming from the same account. That being the TikTok account of a man named Hunter, who went incredibly viral one day after starting a video by saying,
"Good morning, it's 5 a.m. Let me tell you a very scary story about how I was stalked by what I think was a skinwalker.
Now, this might sound familiar to you if you watch my live streams, because I actually watched these videos for the first time with you guys on a live where I was watching like scary videos that you have tagged me in. And man, this story, I mean, it is like a 7-part thing, genuinely creeped me out for the rest of the night the first time I heard it. So Hunter starts us off by saying that he grew up in Temecula, specifically in an area called Duluth. He's lived there twice in his life, once as a very young boy, and then I think a little bit older into his adolescence. But when he was very, very young, his family lived in an area that was surrounded by like groves and trees and stuff. And he said when he was growing up, he would always hear what sounded like voices talking to him from the trees in a language he couldn't really understand, but he would like talk back to them. They would find arrowheads in the backyard, and this area just seemed very, very active. He said one thing that always stuck with him though is that as a little boy, anytime he was alone in the backyard, he always felt like he was being watched.
And so one night when I was a little boy, I asked my dad in the middle of the night to walk down to the kitchen with me and get a glass of water. And we had this really big plate window in the kitchen, and staring back at me were these giant orange eyes. And I have never been able to like describe the fear and the dread of seeing these unblinking giant orange eyes. It was probably an animal, honestly, but you can't rationalize that when you're like 4 or 5 years old. Even now, whenever I have nightmares, I genuinely see those orange eyes.
The orange eyes come back into play, by the way, in the most terrifying way possible. As I said, he's lived in this area twice, once when he was very young and then when he was a little bit older. When his father passes away, he and his family move back to Duluth. He's kind of in like a neighborhood in a residential area. There are kids his age that he can play with and go on bike rides and stuff with. And something that he and his brother loved was that there was a random tree house in the grove of trees near their home. They had always wanted a tree house. This was just something they'd always talked about. And so they're like, this is our tree house. We're laying claim on it and we're gonna fix it up. It's like a rotted, slowly deteriorating tree house. But something he said was strange was the smell.
The thing with that is there's a lot of rust. And so like you can already smell this like very like tangy, rusty smell in the air. And so we then say, this is our treehouse. No one's clearly using it, so let's make it ours. And we go back to the house and we start getting tools. We start working on this. And whenever we have neighbor friends over, we go work on the treehouse. It was basically like mom would take us to Home Depot. We'd get a couple 2x4s, some nails, and start hammering it in. And so about a month later, my brother Chase and my mom go on a field trip to Sacramento because that was the big trip at the time. And so I'm staying with some neighbor friends and their son, Taylor. And I get on my bike one day after school and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go ride my bike. And they're like, oh, where are you going to go? And I said, oh, the treehouse. And the mom is like, what treehouse? So I'm like, oh, you know, the one that's like up Sunset Terrace. And she's like, honey, don't go there. I was like, why? And she's like, just don't go there, please. I'm like, okay, this is weird. So I went there because I'm dumb. When I get there, there's a kid. There's a kid just working on the treehouse, and I've never seen him before. And so I'm like, hey, hello. And he like waves back, and so I come up and I'm like, hi, I'm Hunter. What's your name? And he says, I'm working on the treehouse. I'm like, yeah, I see that. That's cool. Like, what, like, is this yours? And he's like, no, I like it though. I'm like, okay. So he's giving like fairly short one-word answers. The thing that I'm noticing now is that rusty smell from before is heightened. It is a lot more intense. Like, it is like this rust. It's like blood and rust. It's a very metallic smell. And I'm starting to get pretty queasy, like really off-putted. And it's getting to the point where I'm almost about to throw up, and this kid is just like, he's working on the treehouse, but it's almost as if like he's acting out working on the treehouse. Like he's not actually doing anything. And so I'm trying to get like asking more questions, like where he lives, and he's only really giving one-word answers if he gives answers at all. And I'm just starting to feel weird, and my stomach feels sick from the smell, and I'm like, hey, I'm actually gonna go. He's like, I know, you're gonna go now. I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, well, I'll see you later. Still don't have his name. And I get on my bike and I ride away, and I like look back, and he's then standing in the field, like standing where these houses were supposed to be built. Later that night, I can't sleep. Like I can't sleep at all. And I feel this like need to like look out the window. And there's this kid standing at the top of the driveway. I'm like genuinely like all the hair is like standing on my hand. He's like standing in the driveway, and it's clearly this kid, but it's as if this kid is like crooked. It's literally like he's looking like this. He's just standing there. And I like blink and like I close the blinds, and I can feel like when you feel someone's presence like coming up to a window, you know they're there. And I could not sleep that entire night because I felt that presence at that window. And like right before in the morning, it was a Friday. And so I just had to check for myself. And I went outside before we left for school, and I looked, and there were like these weird misshapen, like it looked like a footprint, but it was almost as if it was like made by an animal. It was just standing in front of that window.
And I get chills every time he describes the misshapen figure by the window that kind of looked like this little boy. I mean, down to the footprints that were outside of it. It's absolutely terrifying, and whatever this thing was clearly wanted him to know that it was there. This goes insanely viral, and the people need a part 2. So he comes back and basically says that after his mom and his brother went on this field trip to Sacramento, that they, came home, but weird things were happening around the house. Doors would open and close on their own. His computer would turn on by itself in the middle of the night. And then he talks about the dark figure that he would see standing in the house.
Whenever I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would always see a figure. And like it was just this dark figure that would always be like just ever so slightly out of glance. Like sometimes like when you see shapes at night, you can pretty much figure out that it's something in your house. This was humanoid. This was a figure. And what I I can't explain is the fact that light would not reflect off of it like a normal object. It's as if light went into it and stopped.
We now come to the part of this story where a once in every 30 years snowstorm happens in Temecula. It's 5 a.m. Hunter goes to his mom's room. He's like, "It's snowing outside, Mom." She's like, "You are not awake right now. Go back to bed." And as he's going back to his room, he sees the crooked figure once more.
And so as I'm on my way back from my mom's room to my room, I pass by the kitchen, which has a big window. What is standing outside? It's the crooked figure. It's just standing there in the snow. And I can clearly tell that snow is on it. And I'm like, genuinely, every single fiber of my being knows what I saw. It was just standing there. And the thing that I still can't explain is that its eyes were orange. I know in part 1, I said it could have been an animal. Every fiber of my being says that that thing had orange eyes. It felt like this thing has been following me since I was a child. Later that day, we play in the snow, all that, but I take a second just for myself and I walk out back and I see the same prints. It's the exact same prints that were outside the window. It's there.
And after this point, he feels like he can always see this thing out of his peripheral. Like it's always following him, observing him.
It never felt like it wanted to do anything nefarious. It always felt like it was curious. Like it wanted to know more. It wanted some amount of a connection. Like it, in a weird way, it felt like it wanted a friend. Yet the way and the manner of how it was occupying my space was terrifying to a 10-year-old. And so a couple years later, when we go to sell the house is emptied at this point, and I'm just like walking around. I don't know where my mom is, and my brother is somewhere on the other side of the house. And I hear the voice from the treehouse just call out saying, "Goodbye." And it's always as if, because then I start trying to follow the voice, like, where is this coming from? I'm trying to like run around. I'm trying to like find it. I can't find it. There's a little shed on the property. Cute little shed. And I go outside and I see the boy from the treehouse. Whatever that I saw all those, months ago. And he goes into the shed. And so like I run into the shed. There's nothing there. There's a part of me that feels like that spirit, whatever it was trapped. And it was just looking for some amount of a companion.
So that's it. They move out of the house and he sees the little boy one last time. He hears him say goodbye. And that's the end of the story, right? Well, a lot of people kept asking, why did your friend's mom, why did the neighbor friend's mom say, do not go to that treehouse? So Hunter reaches out to her and just basically says, I'm, telling this story. Why did you say that? And he gets an email back from her.
I reached out to my next door neighbor and I asked her about why she said not to go to the treehouse. And so this is from Taylor's mom. "Hi Hunter, it's been a long time. Wow, yes, I do remember the treehouse. As memory serves me, when we first moved to the neighborhood, we went on a walk one evening up around where your house and several others were still being built. For whatever reason, we decided to walk one of the lots that had just been graded. We had only been there for a couple minutes, but there was this sudden awful smell. We both smelled it and couldn't place where it was coming from. So when I looked towards the trees at the far end of the lot line, I could have sworn I saw a small boy standing under what looked like a pile of rotten wood stuck in a tree. A couple days later, Taylor remarked on meeting a young boy his age in our backyard who told him about a treehouse and said he should go to it. Even today, my skin crawls just thinking about it. He had never seen that little boy since. I watched your video. Yes, I think that was the thing Taylor and I both saw. Give all my love to your mom and brother. May God bless you and keep you safe."
The fact that she described, not exactly what he was saying, of course, but so much of what she was saying really played into the stories that he had already told, just chills all over my body. At this point, I am so invested in this story, and there's still a lot to get through. And a lot of people are sort of chiming in on this, saying this area that you're talking about, Deleuze, there is just a weird energy. I think in part one, he said something to the line of, this area has a very ancient energy. It's very mystical. It feels different than anywhere else. A commenter says, the moment you said Deleuze, I got scared. Had a piece of property off of Carancho Road. You ever hear the drums? And this is where Hunter kind of explains this insane phenomena that has come out of the Temecula area, I suppose, about these drums that people will hear. Drums that would come out of nowhere and echo through the canyons of Deleuze. And even as he's explaining this, the hair on his arm stands straight up. This is a phenomena he's familiar with.
Any time that something weird would happen in and around Deleuze, so voices in the trees, seeing this little boy right before we moved out, or just in random times during the year, there would be the sound of drums that would just echo through Deleuze, through the canyons, through the trees. And I could never place, and I'm getting goosebumps again. It was as if it sounded like someone was preparing for war. It sounded like the beating of a rhythmic drum, of drumming up this energy, this weird, honestly undescribable sense. And so one of the times that I distinctly remember the drums happening and then something weird occurring was the first time that my computer turned on in the middle of the night. This was after my mom and my brother got back from the field trip, and I was outside for whatever reason at night, and I could hear just a couple drum beats. It was a doom, 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 doom. And it was far in the distance. It was not close. And so later that night, when I'm falling asleep, I see this figure just kind of walk past. And so where my bedroom is, there's a hallway, and then there's my computer right here. We had like this little like alcove nook. And so there were two computers. There was my brother's and there was mine. And so I'm looking through the door. My bed's here, doorway's here, and this figure just walks past. And as he walks past, or it walks past, I don't know what it is, it like stops and it clearly turns and just looks and stands and watches. And I like, it feels like we're having like a 20-minute stare off. And then it just walks away. And so I get out of bed and I look, there's nothing there, but I turn around, and like right as I turn around, another like shadow or whatever like goes out, like it was waiting in this doorway and leaves. And then when it leaves, like there's the Windows XP like turn on sound, like doo 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 doo, and like my computer boots on, and I can't explain that. Like I was nowhere near close to the computer, and it just turns on, and it's like midnight. And so my mom comes out of her bedroom and she's like, "What are you doing awake? Go back to bed. Why are you turning on your computer?" I'm like, "I didn't turn on my computer." And she's like, "You're lying, go to bed." The drums are something that I know exactly what they sound like, and they were the precursor to everything. Any time that something weird happened, there would be a rhythmic beating. There would be something in the air after this doom, 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 doom.
I just found that so interesting because this commenter brought it up and I was like, what do you mean the drums? And of course, Hunter has an experience with it. Is it tied into this entity that he has become so familiar with throughout his childhood? Is it something else entirely? I just heard a seagull outside of my room. I don't live anywhere near the ocean at all. I have literally lived in this house for nearly 4 years. I have never heard a seagull outside of my house. All right, moving on to the next video. This is actually the point where Hunter realizes he should not be calling the thing that he was stalked by its actual name. He refers to it this round as a flesh pedestrian and thanks the commenters who informed him he probably should not say its name as it calls the entity to you. Now, he ends up drawing in this video what it was he saw, starting off with the orange eyes that he saw first from when he was a very young boy.
I genuinely hope that what I saw then was an animal, because just seeing those two unblinking eyes is still terrifying. But what I know you guys care about is the crooked figure. That's kind of what it looked like. It was like that. I'm really bad at drawing. And then the footprints kind of looked like this. It was like it was a human's footprint, so I drew it on the left. But it was as if there were like paw pads and then like these longer toes that kind of like came into points. And something else that I wanted to draw really quick, and this is also something where I know I said in part 5 I would go back to the treehouse. I'm reaching out to the Pachanga tribe of the Luiseno Indians who lived in the area, just so that I can understand the area better. I don't want to go back into that area and bring this back. But when I've been reflecting on this story, I remember when we first got to the treehouse, seeing this carving in the tree, and it was like, it was there for a while. Like, I don't know what it means, but it was in the tree where, like, in the actual tree where the treehouse was. It looked like that.
Now, after giving us this little demonstration of what he saw, I mean, listen, it really put some things into perspective for my brain, just seeing a representation of what he saw as a child. He explains that he actually wants to go back to the tree house. And in part 6, the final part of this story, Hunter returns to the tree house. And he felt like he was being called back. I feel like I watch a lot of these videos. You know, I'm watching scary videos on a daily, if not hourly basis. I'm constantly pulling things that you guys tag me in. And I have never felt an energy quite like what he shows in this video. It is so palpable and otherworldly, and I'm just gonna let you watch it for yourself, but I'm not surprised that these are the experiences he's had here.
Forgot how quiet it was up here. Even after all this time, they never developed this lot. Holy shit, it is still there. Holy shit, it's still there. I don't believe my eyes, it's still there. That's it. That's the treehouse. God, my heart is racing. Of all the trees that were through here, there were trees all through here, including where this house was. The one that stays is the treehouse. Yeah, we put that there. That, we built those steps. I'm not seeing where the symbol was. There used to be a branch right here where I saw the symbol. It wasn't on the tree trunk, it was jutting off right here. This is it. The smell's gone. Kind of that heaviness that I always felt is gone too. Whatever spiritual energy is still here, I give you peace. I was never meant to be here. I'm sorry, but I hope sharing your story brings you peace and closure, as it has brought me.
This story is finished. There's no more details, nothing more to talk about. Because I have found peace, as I feel like whatever I saw found peace for itself. My heart breaks for all the trees that were cut down, because the energy and the mysticism of that area is gone. Whether that's because I grew up or something else, I'll never know.
And with that, the story ended. He's never talked about it since, as far as I know. Hunter still is like a storyteller and stuff and has other videos on his account that I highly recommend checking out. As with all of these videos, I will have everybody that I talked about today listed down below. But that is the end of his flesh pedestrian mimic story. And that is the end of this video that literally took like 2 days to film and had a whole plethora of strange things happen during it. So I hope it was easy enough to watch. I didn't say this earlier, but I'm currently in the middle of a 2.5 week long court case in which I am a juror on. And so every single weekday for 8 hours a day, I'm in court. It's currently the weekend. I think it's literally the same day you guys are watching this. I'm filming the rest of this on Sunday. And I'm just sorry that videos have been so backlogged. I'm sorry that you're not getting streams from me right now. Unfortunately, with literally everything that has been going on for me, it's very, 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 very hard to get things filmed. But I hope you all enjoyed this mimic story compilation. Nonetheless, if you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I want to say a huge thank you to my subscribers who are members of the channel. Thank you so much for your patience as I am working on bringing you more members only content, a lot of which will have to do with some of my adventures out in Japan and Korea when I can finally edit them. But thank you so much to our members. If you want to get members only perks like members only videos, polls to help me decide on future video topics and so much more, you can click that little join button somewhere around the screen. We would love to have you. An extra special thank you to my VIP loves for their continued and very generous support of the channel. I love and appreciate you all very, very much. I love you all very much, and I will see you in my next video.